The book focuses on the aesthetics and the style of the far right and analyzes them as a gateway to far-right scenes and subcultures, basically arguing that the kind of branding and style and identity that comes across in the clothing is one way into the far-right and acts as a pathway into it for young men in particular. That's kind of the layers of coding. It's taking historical references, colonial references, references to Nazi history, but combining them in other ways with contemporary anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, and racist sentiments that are not always read in one simple way. Right? Playing with the legality, playing with where the legal line gets drawn in terms of whether something would be banned or not. That's how the coding works. In the German context, the way most of the banning works is that organizations are banned, so the Nazi Party is banned. And then any symbol associated with the Nazi Party is also banned. So the swastika, for example, you could not wear a swastika. You can't have the word for swastika, which is Hakenkreuz, on your sweatshirt. Where it gets complicated, so last year in 2016, a photographer I worked with spotted a t-shirt that had HKNKRZ as written across in block letters, in imitating the logo of Run DMC, which is another issue about how global symbols get deployed. But that's the word for Hakenkreuz, but the word for swastika for Hakenkreuz, but without the vowels. So then the question became legally, is this a banned word or not? Does a word stay a word if the vowels are removed? A lot of legal discussion ultimately determined that that is not the word Hakenkreuz, that if you take the vowels out, it can be legally displayed. So that's the kind of game playing that goes on, back and forth, towing the line of legality, kind of existing, and one of my interviewees said, in the gray zone, neither being this or that, not always being clear whether something is legally banned or not. The question that comes up a lot for the media, and particularly a lot of journalists, have struggled with the question of whether analyzing the far right, paying attention to the far right, gives them a bigger platform. And I certainly struggled with that. I talk about it a lot in the preface to the book when I read a poem by one of my favorite poets, Joyce Carol Oates, who said, something like, I think the greatest revenge would be to forget the Holocaust, right, to erase it. And that sort of paying attention to these bullies and thugs gives them more of a platform than they deserve. I thought a lot about that, and the Anti-Defamation League, as Oren Segal has said, their belief is sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that's the sort of stance that I've taken, which is, erasure would be lovely, but I think it's actually better to pay attention and to be vigilant, and the more we can understand about why young people are drawn into these movements, the better we will be as educators at developing interventions that might work. I would describe my fellowship experience in 3 words as investment, incubation, and network. So I see it as something that didn't really fully impact my career even until this book. I mean, it had an early investment that made my first book possible, but it also laid the foundation for all kinds of ideas that started to incubate 20 years ago during that fellowship that then came back. I mean, I went back to the same school for this project, one of the same schools that I had studied in that first project as an IDRF fellow. And in that sense, that third word of network is, I don't think I fully understood at the time how some of the contacts that I made with teachers and principals in the schools at that time would continue to matter so much 20 years later.